All right, so you may have seen the headlines about this one. A couple of really provocative new studies from Harvard have just dropped, and they're suggesting there's a link between living near a nuclear power plant and having a higher risk of cancer. So let's get into it and figure out what this research really says.
And we're going to start right there with the big bombshell conclusion from the lead researcher himself. I mean, a statement like that is guaranteed to reignite a very, very old debate. So the question is, how on earth did his team come to that conclusion? Okay, let's break this down. We need to look at what this research actually found, because this isn't just one little study, it's a pretty comprehensive analysis that paints a detailed and, for some people, a pretty alarming picture. So, the whole foundation for this claim comes from looking at almost 20 decades of cancer data. We're talking from the year 2000 all the way to 2018. They took all this information and basically looked for patterns, focusing on one key question. Does living closer to a nuclear plant seem to make a difference? So, what are the actual numbers that are causing all this fuss? Let's get right into the data. Let's start with this number. In Massachusetts, the researchers calculated that 3.3% of all cancer cases during that time period could be linked back to living near a nuclear facility. Now, that might not sound like a huge percentage, but it translates to about 20,600 actual cases, just in that one state. And here's where it gets really interesting. They found what's called a distance decay effect. Basically, the risk isn't the same for everyone. It's highest if you live really, really close to a plant. And then the further away you get, the more the risk drops off, until it pretty much vanishes once you're about 19 miles away. But here's the finding that really jumps off the page. If you look at people living just over a mile from a plant, the risk for older folks was way higher. Men between 55 and 64 saw a 97% greater risk. For women in that same age group, a 52% greater risk. And for people over 65, those numbers go up even more. Okay, those numbers are startling, for sure. But this brings us to what is, without a doubt, the most important part of this whole explainer. It's a concept that is absolutely crucial for understanding any scientific study like this. So here it is, the key question. Just because two things seem to be happening in the same place, does that automatically mean one is causing the other? And the simple answer is no. This study found a correlation. It found a statistical link, an association between living near a plant and higher cancer rates. What it does not do, and this is a huge distinction, is prove a direct cause and effect relationship.
And you know what? To their credit, the researchers themselves are very open about the study's limitations. They point out that they only tracked proximity, they didn't have real-time radiation readings from the plants, they also kind of lumped all cancer types into one big bucket, which might hide some important details. The bottom line is, they see this as a starting point for more research, not the final word.
So, as you can imagine, a study with findings like this doesn't stay quiet for long. It spills out into the public and, well, people start interpreting it in very, very different ways. For some people, like this Massachusetts state senator, the study is total vindication. They see it as clear proof of something they've been worried about for years, that living in the shadow of these plants carries a real risk. But the industry sees it completely differently. A spokesperson for Holtec, a company that works with these plants, fired back. He argued that the actual radiation dose for a neighbor is tiny, less than what you get from, say, a single chest X-ray. And then, of course, you have the public debate. This one comment from a Reddit thread just kind of sums it all up, right? It captures that feeling of skepticism, that immediate reaction of, okay, but how does this compare to the other guys? To really get what's happening here, we need to zoom out. Because this whole debate, it is not new, not by a long shot. This is just the latest chapter in a story that's been going on for over 100 years. Yeah, the story of how we've come to understand radiation is, well, it's long, it's complicated, and honestly, it's pretty tragic in parts. Our knowledge has been built step by step, often through really heartbreaking real-world experiences. It all kicks off in 1895 when X-rays were discovered and people started using them for everything, often recklessly. Then, in the 1920s, you have the awful story of the radium girls, factory workers who got bone cancer from painting watch dials. By the 40s, we started seeing studies showing higher leukemia rates in the doctors who were pioneering radiology. And then everything changed with the massive, decades-long studies of the survivors of the atomic bombs. Studies that really formed the basis of our modern understanding. So, after all that, what should you walk away with? Okay, First, a big new Harvard study suggests there's a statistical link, a correlation between living near a nuclear plant and higher cancer rates. Second, and this is the big one, correlation is not causation. Third, this study is pouring a whole lot of fuel onto a very old fire about the risks of low-dose radiation. And finally, it makes the already complicated conversation about using nuclear power to fight climate change even more complicated.
And that leaves us all with a really tough question, doesn't it? As we're desperately searching for clean energy solutions for our planet, we're going to keep running into complex data like this. And the biggest challenge for scientists, for policymakers, and for all of us is figuring out what to do when we're stuck in that murky gray area between a statistical link and absolute proof.